I rise in opposition to the amendment to H.R. 2486. The majority is actually playing procedural games here by including a non-germane provision to satisfy certain requirements. The two immigration bills that we are considering today are expensive, make no doubt about it. According to the CBO, the No Ban Act will increase direct spending by $290 million over the next 10 years and increase deficits by $307 million over the same period. And a preliminary estimate from CBO notes that the Access to Counsel Act, which we will debate later today, will increase discretionary spending by at least $1 billion over the next 5 years. So the majority had to come up with a pay-for. They opted for prescription drug legislation, but chose to discard bipartisan committee-passed text to instead include a flawed prescription bill that will stifle investment in research, prevent new medications from coming to market, block truthful advertising, and disincentivize improvements in patient care. This Congress has unanimously passed 6 bipartisan bills out of committee to address the costs of prescription drugs. But today, instead of using bipartisan negotiated text, my colleagues across the aisle have made prescription drugs a partisan issue in an effort to pass partisan immigration bills. Our president has consistently taken decisive action to help ensure the security of our immigration programs and thus the safety of our country. Every time he does so, my Democrat friends cry foul. They attempt to block the president's actions and threaten to take away the president's power. The Department of Homeland Security has identified several types of information that it needs in order to make a reliable decision regarding the admissibility of a foreign country's national seeking entry to the United States. This includes things like, does the country report lost or stolen identity documents, including passports, to Interpol? And how often do they do so? Does the country share information about their known or suspected terrorists or about their criminals with us? And does the country issue modern electronic passports? These are clearly important things to know when determining whether to let a foreign national enter our country. Instead of expressing appreciation for what this president has been able to accomplish with regard to security, my colleagues have decided to consider this No Ban Act, which effectively eviscerates the ability of the administration to take quick and decisive action to protect our homeland when concerns arise, even action to prevent entry of aliens based on a global health crisis like COVID-19. Until the president signed the first travel executive order in January of 2017, very few had ever heard of the Immigration and Nationality Act's Section 212F authority. This provision provides the president broad latitude to impose restrictions on the entry of aliens or classes of aliens to the United States when such entry, quote, would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, close quote. And this authority has been used successfully by Presidents Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama, and others. Pursuant to the travel executive order, the president required the Secretary of DHS and Secretary of State, along with the Director of National Intelligence, to determine what countries failed to meet international standards of information sharing or identity management, or were at a risk of terrorism or public safety concern, and to report their findings to him. Based on that assessment and the recommendations of the secretaries, the president placed travel restrictions on 7 nations. Pursuant to the continued review of countries and an updated report, in January, the president issued a proclamation imposing narrowly tailored travel restrictions on 6 additional countries: Burma, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Nigeria, Sudan, and Tanzania. It's important to understand that such restrictions are not permanent. When a country comes into compliance with the information sharing and other requirements, they can be removed from the list of restricted countries, and that has actually happened under this administration. For instance, Chad in 2018. And press reports note that the government of Nigeria immediately began working to come into compliance. The president's use of 212F authority has helped improve our security and the vetting of foreign nationals seeking entry into the United States. As the DHS Assistant Secretary for Threat Prevention and Secretary Policy testified last September, quote, one country reinstituted a dormant program to help identify convicted criminals. 3 countries have adopted more secure e-passports. 2 countries obtained access to Interpol databases for the first time, and 8 countries began reporting lost and stolen passports to Interpol for the first time, or they improved the regularity of that reporting. These are not insignificant improvements to the world's security. The No Ban Act would take 212F authority from the elected president and give it to an unelected subordinate who is not accountable to voters. Under this bill, only the Secretary of State can determine that the entry of aliens is a threat to the U.S. This is problematic in instances where other cabinet officials should be involved, such as Health and Human Services or Treasury. The bill's undefined and broad terms, least restrictive means, and the notion of harm are ripe for litigation, especially considering the bill's expansive judicial review provision and explicit class action allowance. The No Ban Act also contains onerous reporting requirements, consultation with Congress before the President can act, and Federal Register publication of information about the action taken and the circumstances necessitating the action. But does it make sense for the U.S. government to broadcast the deficiencies they have identified, since those would likely be exploited by bad actors seeking to do us harm? Perhaps the most ridiculous of the bill's provisions is Section 4, which not only terminates the travel executive orders in place, but incredibly ceases all actions taken pursuant to any proclamation or executive order terminated by the bill. That means that information sharing on terrorists, criminals, and other security threats that has developed between the United States and other countries with travel restrictions would end. This bill is a knee-jerk response by my Democrat colleagues because of the disapprobation of President Trump. And it would undermine the safety and security of Americans. I urge my colleagues to oppose the No Ban Act, and I reserve the balance of my time.